Hey there, and welcome back to the VEX IQ Guide. In today's video, we're going to be building a basic VEX IQ pneumatic system. And then afterwards, we're going to be programming it using the VEX IQ blocks code. Let's dive right in. Firstly, we're going to be starting off this build by connecting a wire to our brain. We're then going to be connecting this wire to one of our pneumatic solenoids, which, as you can recall from the last video, determines the position of the pistons. It gets these signals from the brain, so it makes sense that we're going to connect these two things first. Next, we're going to be connecting the solenoid to the air pump, as you can see here. Now, the air pump and the solenoid don't connect with a regular wire. It actually connects with a unique type of wire that you can find on the air pump itself. So, as you can see in the video, be sure to use the wire given to you through the air pump, and then connect that to a special insert that you can find in the solenoid. Next, we're going to be putting the air tank onto the pump. It makes sense that these are really close together because the pump is ultimately what powers the tank. You can actually snap these on together by taking the pins that are pre-given to you on the tank and clipping them into the hole inserts on the pump. It may take a couple tries though because the way that these pieces are built makes them a little bit difficult to connect in. Next, we're going to be cutting some of this tubing. We can do this by simply using scissors and cutting it to our desired length. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we're just going to be taking a rough estimate, which for this case isn't going to be a whole lot because we're connecting two different parts over a very short distance. I'm then going to do this twice using the same length by using the initial one as a measuring tool for the second one. If you want to make two pieces of tubing with the same length, I recommend using one as the measuring tool for the second, as it works pretty well. Now that we have our tubing, we're simply going to be taking a T-fitting and connecting it with our tubing pieces. Make sure when you're putting the tubing into the fitting that you put the tubing into the sides that go in opposite directions, not the one that's perpendicular. This is really important, or otherwise it's not going to get the desired result. Once you place it into these positions, as you can see in the video, you're then going to be taking the other end and then putting it into the fitting that comes in the pump and the tank, as you can see here. Next, we're going to be cutting another piece of tubing, and this time it's going to be much larger because we're connecting two pneumatic pieces over longer distances. With this piece, we're going to be connecting it into the T-fitting on one end, and then the other end, the solenoid. Make sure that you put the tubing into the hole in the solenoid that has the letter P, as you can see in this image. It's really important that you do that for our future steps. We're now going to be cutting two more pieces of tubing. If you can't tell already, tubing is a really critical part in this process, so be sure you get comfortable with cutting your tubing in your builds. For these pieces of tubing, they're going to be much longer, even longer than the ones that we had before, because now we're connecting two pieces over a much longer distance. And like before, we're having two equal length parts, so we can use the first one as a reference for the second when doing our measurements. We've now saved the best part for last, attaching the cylinders. What we're going to be doing is taking the tubing and on one end connect it to the solenoid and the other the cylinder. First, take one end of the tubing and attach it to the slot that says A on the solenoid. This letter should be really apparent right next to the slot where you would put the tubing in, as you can see here. Then, connect it to the cylinder, which should also have a letter A next to its slot for the tubing. By ensuring that we have both letters A, we can make sure that this process goes really smooth in the future. Then we're going to be doing the exact same thing with the letter B this time. So make sure on the solenoid and cylinder, they both have the letter B. Now that we have our system, let's get to programming. What we're going to be doing first is going to the Devices tab of our VEX Code project. Then we're going to be selecting the Pneumatics option. And we can do it on port 1 just for this example, but just know you can do it on any port of your brain, depending on what your pneumatic is plugged into. Now, all of these default settings for the pneumatic should be correct. However, if you find that when you click your buttons after we're all done this coding session, and it actually goes the opposite way, then simply click this reverse button here and it'll fix all of your problems. Now we're going to be going over to the Motion tab. And we're going to be selecting the Set Pneumatic 1 pump to on. What this will do is keep your pump running the entire match. So whenever your brain is on, your pump will be constantly pumping out air so that your pistons can then use it. Now we're going to be dragging the block when controller button pressed. For this video, we're just going to be using E up as an example, but you can use any button you want. Then we're going to be going back to the motion tab and grabbing the Set Pneumatic 1 cylinder 1 to extend. What this will do is anytime the button E up is pressed, the cylinder will extend. Now, of course, we're going to need to make the cylinder retract as well, as you don't always want it to be sticking out. To do this, we're going to be going back and getting another one controller button pressed. This time, for this example, we'll use E down. Then, going back to the motion tab, we grab the exact same block, and this time we set it from extend to retract. This means that whenever E down is pressed, the cylinder will retract. Now, if you're wondering what these first two drop downs are and what they can do, which are pneumatic 1 and cylinder 1, I'll explain it for you. First off, for pneumatic 1, we can use this and switch it out if we have more than one solenoid. Let's say we had two solenoids total, pneumatic 1 and pneumatic 2. Well, if we wanted to use pneumatic 2 instead, we would simply click that drop down and then select pneumatic 2. Now, each solenoid powers two cylinders. So let's say we had two cylinders here instead of one. Then we could click the drop down of cylinder 1 and instead select cylinder 2 if we wanted to refer to our second cylinder. Ultimately, just remember this one key thing. One pneumatic device powers one solenoid, which can power a maximum of two cylinders. And you have control of all of that by just clicking and changing these tabs. Now we can see this mechanism working in action. When we start the program, you can see that the air pump is already pumping air. And when we press E up, the piston goes into its extended position, and when we press E down, it goes into its retracted position, just as we told it to do in the program. Now you have a functional VEX IQ pneumatic system. If you found this video helpful, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more content just like this. I'll see you in the next one.